Thank you, everyone. Just to start, we have no apologies for this information session. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's session. Before we start, a reminder, this workshop is being live streamed. However, while this workshop is open to the public, it's for staff to provide guidance to members, not a forum for debate. It is also not a forum for the public to provide input into decisions or bring other matters to attention of council. If a member of the public wants to do that, please talk to staff and we'll help you have your say. So I'd like to welcome Tom Anthony Nigel here to present Canterbury Museum Draft Annual Plan for 25-26. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning all, and thank you once again for giving us the opportunity to come back. And what I'm hoping today will be about clarification of obviously some outstanding issues that we have failed to get across in the past. So I'd like to just by again introducing Nick Hawkins to my right. Nick's a new member. As I said last time, he has many years of roles in civil engineering. And I think I'm going to cut down because we're cut short of time, but he comes well recommended and has a lot of skills in exactly what we're doing. He's been a huge help. Nigel Tchaikovsky, not to be confused with Tchaikovsky as I did before. He is the CFO, and we've got Anthony, who you all know, and Andrea Webley, who's the fundraising development manager. When I came to last session, I went away thinking we had 10 minutes to try and present to you the annual plan. It left nobody any chance to ask questions or anything like that. And the last few times I've come away feeling that wasn't a good look. David is overseas and sends his apologies, so I'm now the acting chair, so I can do what I like. So today we've put the board up the front, which is myself and Nick. We just asked Nigel to run the slideshow. And the idea is that we do a quick intro and then we hand over to you to ask us all those burning questions that we know have been sitting in the backs of your mind for quite some time. So, look, I think without further ado, we just want to again thank you for your support, your previous contributions, including capital investment, civic endorsement and collaboration through planning. It's been vital in getting us to this stage. And today's discussion is about how we can take the next step together to secure the future. We gave a presentation about a week or so ago outlining our current needs, and today we'd like to spend this time answering your questions. And before, I'd like to clarify and confirm the Museum Trust Board agreed to go ahead with development in 2022 on the basis that the museum would only contract what it could afford. And that is front of mind for every decision I've made so far. I can't commit to anything that we don't have funding for as much as I might like to. I find this quite a difficult situation to be in. I run a business where what I say goes. It's my money, it's my house on the line, but I find myself in the unusual situation of having to ask you to spend public money. And I'll be right up front with you, I'm finding that quite difficult, but I'll get over it. So we're currently at the enabling work stage and we have the money to complete this. The next stage is construction of the base isolated basement and new 5-level building. We have the money to complete an insurable and watertight structure. This is the contract that we awarded to Leeds in November 2024. To make the new build phase affordable, we had to pare back the scope to work within what we could afford. During this process, we identified 11 million in cost savings, but we also identified that we could get considerable gains if we could secure funding to lock in an overlapping contract with Leeds to complete the fit out of the building. And by that, I'm referring to the fact that if we can go to the next phase, the prices that we have locked in, because this is a fixed contract, are part of the next phase. If we can't get this across the line, it is what it is, but we will be up to the mercies of the market when we come back to it. So to achieve this, we would need to secure committed funding of 60 million by January 2026. That's not saying we need the money, that's just we need the commitment from the council and others, because the first thing the government asks us every time we have this discussion, has the council committed? We are the funder of last resort. There's no point coming to us until you've worked out what you can do with the council, and we get that all the time. So at this point, I want to apologise for communication around the letting of the contract. That was down to me. I'm the chair of the PCG, and at that stage I was also the chair. I found myself in a situation where we were presented with 3 contracts. One was clearly a lot lower than the other 2, but I wasn't overly surprised because that was the incumbent boots in the ground contractor that we were using. If anybody knew what the risks ahead of us, it was them. Other people had done a rewrite. One of them was, we're talking like millions and millions of dollars difference between the top. These were the 3 of the 5 that started. We came down to 1. We presented the contract, and then we realised that they were hoping that we'd say no, because they had somehow or other had got out of the delta between 1 and 2 and 3, and they were hoping that we were going to go away. At that point, they go back to their subbies and say, hey, we've got this wrong. You need to re-tender or rethink what you're doing. There's only one way the contract was going to go at that point. So we allowed the specialist group time to go away and work with Lee's, and it was supposed to be in confidence, to see what other savings, because we could see areas that they were also wrong. And we felt that was there was an opportunity before we actually signed the contracts to get that done. So what we did is we went through all that, and then we realised that we were rapidly running out of time, and basically as a board we made the decision we got to grab this opportunity now, because otherwise when we come back we're going to be looking for about another $40 million. So that's why we did what we did. We could have contracted that. We went around and spoke to the CEs and the mayors of, but it was only that small group, and we didn't have a lot of time because next thing Christmas was upon us. So for that, you've got my abject apologies. As I say, I'm a bit new to this type of carry on, but that was what was behind that decision, to lock in, getting the stage that we could lock the building up, we could ensure it, it's watertight, and we had the collections under control. So I'm not going to carry on with that. So as I say, we're here to seek the additional capital investment from local government to support the redevelopment of the Canterbury Museum. This redevelopment was a once-in-a-generation project that will reshape the cultural heart of Otatahi, Christchurch, and your support is essential to completing this legacy project for current and future generations. So I'm going to leave it at that point and just throw it open, and I'll do my very best, and if I can't, the guys will help me to answer those burning questions that I know a lot of you have got. Before I do that, I'd also like to thank the councillors who have made the time available recently to go through the site, and most of them have, I think, come away with a much clearer idea of what we've been doing there. We're not a bunch of numpties sitting there just going through and having a party while we talk about museums. There's a lot of very clever people are behind us. Everything we've done has been organised and paid for by the museum of some really high-level people, and also lawyers and all those people necessary. So that's sort of where I'm at now. So all I can say is go for gold.
Sarah, please.
Ask me the questions.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. You'll have seen the staff report
Yes.
that's coming to us, and I'm just wondering some comments on the time frames there. So we were told last week that we would need to make a call on this by January to make a commitment, not for funding this year, but for funding in the future, so you could lock in those contracts. Is that date firm? Because currently the staff recommendation is making a decision in June.
My understanding of the reason for that time is that's when we've got to make a decision to lease to lock in those prices. If we can't, we're not saying we need the money, but what we're saying is if we can get the commitment that yes, in the long-term plan we're going to get that in there, that's enough for us to go to lease and say yep.
But we have to make the decision by January.
To lock those in, the answer is yes.
Thanks.
Okay. Tim?
Yeah, thank you. Is there any discussion at the board table with regards to charging a door fee in the future? I mean, you've got amazing numbers going through your doors. The ratepayers, we are in a cost of living crisis. There's a number of things. We've got a lot of people queuing up at our door.
Yep.
So we've somehow we've got to ease the burden because central government is still throwing more weight on us to lift the burden. So what are you doing in the long-term vision? Is it just going to have your hand out, or are you going to look at different things?
That's a very good question. It's very topical because it's the first one that we had a site visit by 5 local MPs, 4 National, 1 Labor, and that was the very first question. Are you guys thinking about helping yourselves by making a charge? It's been our belief that when you start making a charge, people don't come. We've had this discussion quite a lot, and we're now firmly of the belief that We had 800,000 people coming through the museum before we shut it. We believe we'll start with a minimum of 1.2 million. That's a lot of people coming through those doors, and they're not all from Christchurch. Te Papa recently introduced a charge up there. It's a straight voluntary charge. You come and you ask, are you from New Zealand or are you from overseas? You say you're overseas, there's a $20 cover charge, or whatever they decide to do up there. It's a straight honesty system, and apparently it's working very well. We see no reason at all why we wouldn't attempt to do the same thing, because that's a lot of money, and we get that. We absolutely get that too. We have always charged for the visiting exhibitions, because it costs a lot of money to bring, let's say, Tutankhamun's face and all the rest of it to Christchurch. There was a time we would never have got those anyway, so it was a moot point. But now that we're base isolated, and the museum, the government came to the party with that, Megan Woods was able to secure for us the last part of the earthquake funds, and that is primarily only for the putting of base isolation in. But what that did, it enabled us to say, well, yes, we're in an earthquake zone, but you can bring your collections to Christchurch and they will be safe, because that's all they want to know. So we charge for those. We'll charge for the Antarctic experience and that type of thing, but the rest of it is open and free of charge to ratepayers. As far as people coming off cruise ships, in the same way that we've done it with Quake City, which has gone very, very well and makes us a reasonable amount of money, we're going to do that system. And if it's better to have tried and failed, not tried at all. If people don't come, I can't do much about that. But we are going to be charging visitors a sum, because we've all been overseas. We've all gone into museums, and we all know that the first thing they say is, "Where do you come from?" New Zealand. Good, $20. Thanks for coming. And so
some of them don't ask and just charge.
Yeah, well, it's
that's really what we're coming to.
Yeah.
Is right across the board, and we're not the only place that. I mean, Greymouth, you go there, their art gallery is still closed because they cannot afford to fix it and earthquake it. So they are concentrating in other areas. We now have a whole lot of areas, a whole lot of people clambering at our door, needing support. So the question is, are you looking general charging right across the board, or is there something in the future? What is that?
Our thinking at the moment is that we don't feel we can charge ratepayers. If you believe that we can, and that would be acceptable with the public, well, I'll be interested in hearing that. But
well, it's not what I believe. The fact of the matter is, we've got a lot of people, we're under a lot of pressure, we're under a lot of debt. So I'm just asking what your vision is for the future.
Well, at this stage of the game, you've heard what I said, so yeah.
Okay, Samuel?
Hey, thank you for coming in.
Thanks.
Just in terms of the other councils, so obviously you asked for, was it 25 amongst the councils? What's the sense you're getting from the others in terms of, are they going to be able to meet those timelines, and is there an appetite from them? And I guess if they're not, what happens?
Well, I can tell you that from Waimakariri and Huranui, they've just said, get on with it. They said, and one of them said, well, we'll just give it the whole lot up front, because they, of course, have a lot lower actual amount of money. And we get that. It's easier for them, but that's the other part of the, the 20. We're talking 21 here, and the rest of it comes from the others. We haven't been to Selwyn. We are aware that they're feeling a lot more cash strapped than the other two, and that's a discussion that has not been had yet with them following this latest round of stuff. But that's next week.
Yeah, 30th of April.
The 30th of April. So it's our belief that they are not looking to support it at this stage of the game. That's not a showstopper, because it's still the amount of money that they're actually talking is, in the scheme of things, is not high.
How much is it?
But sorry?
How much would it be?
From those guys?
Yeah.
About 2.5, 3 million
Over the period of the
4 years.
Of the
Right.
few
Oh,
years.
so they're the other bulk, basically.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, there's 4 of us.
There's 4.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I think there's some part of the Museum Act that says if you guys and the other 2 support it, then it's a tag-along clause. I'd feel very uncomfortable about that, and I don't think that we'd want to be invoking something like that, because I'm aware that there's a lot of people turning up in Selwyn, and they're looking at really big increases. So we've got no intention of doing that, but it is a situation.
And so if they don't put in, what happens? Like if we don't put in and they don't put in, what's your backup?
If you don't, it's stop until we will go for the next 2 years until we run out of that 160 million. and then we lock it up, we walk away, it's insured, and then somebody else is going to have to take it on from there.
Yep.
It's as simple as that. And that would be the next generation coming through will look back at us and think, why did you do this? Because that will be a huge escalation by the time, if someone comes back and say 2, 3, 4 years time.
Sorry, I haven't been clear. So what happens if we say no sort of tomorrow, but we invite you to come back next year? What's the...
I can probably, in terms of what does that mean for the program and money?
That's what I want to be clear is...
So is your question, what does that mean for program and money if it gets pushed down the road by 12 months, the decision to support?
Yeah, because maybe I've got it wrong. This is for the fit out.
Yeah, but I suppose fit out split into two pieces. So the thing that we've committed to now is the shell and the envelope and the structure. So we went through a process where we said there's some things that we must meet in order to be able to sign this contract. One of them was it must be insurable, it must be watertight, it must be, and we must be able to turn off the pumps, which is a really big one for people to understand. So from where we are now, the next stop point logically is once you can turn the pumps off, once the structure's complete. We've got to have the full weight on the building before you can do it, otherwise we'll pop it out of the ground. To your question, if the funding commitment doesn't come for the January next year and we can't commit to the fit out, it would be escalation costs, and it would be the P&G cost, because essentially our program, instead of overlapping with the fit out, starts pushing out. So it's more time on site for people, so it gets quite expensive quite quickly.
Yeah. Okay.
And the fit out is two pieces. So there's the fit out in terms of all the services, the walls, everything you see. And then there's the actual visitor experience, the actual museum part of it, so to speak. So it will be what we refer to as a cold shell. It'll be a steel frame, concrete floors, fire pipes in, facade.
So what would happen if if the fit out's in two parts, if there was a view that the councils contributed to the first part, and then and just correct me if I'm wrong, and then but the philanthropy side of it was actually the the actual fit out of the non not the good board and the things
Exhibitions.
like that. Well, how does that look?
That is
the plan.
That is what the numbers are.
What we're asking for at the moment is the contribution towards the fit out, excluding the exhibitions. So that is what we have done. We've split it into stages 5 and 6, where the stage 5 that we're coming to is purely to do the physical fit out of the building, excluding exhibitions.
So is that 50 million?
Correct.
51.
60 million.
Right. Okay.
So that's everything. That's flooring, that's bathrooms, that's partition walls, mechanical, electrical, wiring, lighting. All of that stuff is in what we're calling stage 5, the fit out. Okay,
and then just last one, just around value engineering. So of that 50 million, it's sort of like anything, I guess. What have we done to get that number back? I know you mentioned a bit at the beginning, but what did that start at?
So we've targeted...
And is there more room for movement?
So we've targeted the VE against the structural side of things. There is VE opportunities that sit over there, but I suppose at the moment, trying to get this contract going with Lee's, we don't want to spend money on something that we can't commit to, if that makes sense. We want to keep as much money for this. So yes, there will be VE opportunities to look at.
In the second part, as opposed to this 51 million?
No, in that 51 million.
Okay. And
then the further phase, we can look at that too.
So how do we get some more comfort around that 51 million then? I mean, because I guess the thing, like to Tim's point, there's heaps of pressure. And sorry, Phil, I'll stop in a minute, but there's heaps of pressure on everyone. But is this how quickly could the VE stuff be turned around so we get a more reflective number?
So I suppose there's two parts to that question, perhaps to answer it. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Tom, but when the contractors bid, they bid for the fit out included.
Right.
So it's not a QS estimate number. That's actually a number we've been given from the contractor.
Yep.
So that makes it a little bit more real in terms of this group. We could go and do the exercise to look at the VE. We probably can't answer that right off the top of the bat, but we could come back to you with an answer if that would be helpful.
Yeah.
In terms of how long and how much it would cost to do that VE exercise.
Yeah, it'd be good to know. And I guess that's the other one is if we're thinking that 51 mil, and if we park the VE stuff, and we say half it's anticipated from Crown, half it's anticipated from councils. So if Selwyn is sort of if they're saying maybe not, where are you at with government in terms of? I mean, I know they've said it's a bit like us really. That they've said they're the funder of last resort, but it's usually us that are in that position. Where are you at in terms of timing of an announcement from them, an allocation? I mean, is that something you're going to get by January as well, or?
I think that that is really the $64,000 question. All we can say is that if we can get your side of it, we can then go back and talk to them in real terms. The last meeting we had was very, very positive when we pointed out the fact to them that Auckland University has 60% of its funding came from government, Te Pāpō had 90%, Dunedin has 40%, and we're less than 14%. So we put that to the government ministers who did not realise those deltas and said, actually, you are the fourth leg of the table. For the majority of the taonga in New Zealand sits in these 4 museums. The other guy's done and dusted. We've had our earthquake. We've had this, and the other thing we've got to remember is that this all includes the Robert McDougall as well. This is not just. I'm amazed.
I guess where I'm trying to get to is if government don't commit by January, but we have committed a portion, how does that work? What does that look like from a contractual point of view?
It's challenging.
We won't commit to the land, to the contract.
We will potentially have to stage the commitment of the fit out, which becomes inefficient.
Yeah.
But would you let a contract? Would you take a contract?
We'd only take a contract of what we could commit. So we would go that next step, and you'd end up dividing that fit out into 2 pieces, perhaps. So you might put in all your gens, your backbone, and your first fix, but you won't go into full fit out.
I think
it's not a tidy way of doing it for sure from a financial perspective. And our preference would Sorry, you go.
Sam, I'm just clarifying for my slow brain. You're saying that if you were to go ahead and say yes, but it's tagged to the fact that you also get the government money, is that what you're saying?
Well, that would have to be an option. That would be an option we have to consider. But I mean, it's probably still, it's probably just valid in my mind. Going, well, we wouldn't necessarily be making a decision tomorrow if government haven't committed. But
I feel like, am I right, Councillor, hearing that your question is, if you commit but government doesn't, what do we do with that money?
And the other councils,
Yeah, if the other councils.
Yeah.
So we would only be able to do a partial fit out with that money.
Yeah, but then what? But what does that do to the museum? Like, I guess because what you mentioned.
Well, we can't open. That's the short.
So then,
version of
so if we can't open, it wouldn't make sense for us to spend public money from Christchurch either, would it?
Well, you've got to sort of decide at some stage. As I said to someone earlier on, the journey starts with one step. It is no longer a journey when you stop stepping, and we've got to somehow keep the momentum up to minimise the amount of money that's going to end up being spent on this project. Mm-hmm. It's already, by sitting here, by the time we've gone through resource consents, fought the insurance companies, we've gone from 70 odd million up to where we are now. And that's the tyranny of times I keep referring to people. So the longer this gets spread out, the worse this gets. And it's such an intrinsic part of Christchurch that, all I can do is I can do my best. And once I can't do any more, it is what it is. I can't come back and magically stir up government and say, hey, you need to give us some money because the Christchurch cell won't give us the money. They're going to go, tough luck, that's Christchurch's problem. Yeah. So I hear what you're saying, but there is no real answer to that other than we are going to keep trying. And once you've given us a positive, as long as these guys, then we can go back and say, look, if you guys are prepared to weigh in, and they came back and said under these conditions, we think that we could go there. That's just 5 MPs at the time. We've got a lot more work to do, and we are talking all the time to senior ministers and that, and they get the differential. That is when we pointed out from the difference in funding of the other 3. That's unfair, and that's we have high hopes that if we can start to move together as a team, we could do this. So
all right. Thanks. Thank you very much for that. Yeah.
Pauline?
Oh, thank you. There's been some concern or queries around the 36 odd million that you are undertaking to fundraise. Mm-hmm. What level of confidence do you really have that you can raise that amount of money?
Today, as I sit here, very high.
It's all philanthropic, isn't it, that bit?
Sorry?
It's all philanthropic.
It's philanthropic, yes, and it is coming from all around the world. There are a lot of high net worth individuals who are overseas. and they have said, when you get a roof on it and somewhere I can put my name over a door or something, then come and see us. Because at the moment, we're keeping our head down. We don't want people coming and talking to us about, are you going to give money to the museum and all that sort of stuff. And I can understand how they feel. My problem with a delay is that by their very nature, and Phil, you and I know this, as you get older, some people start dying. And so if those people die in the interim, I'm not talking about you, Phil, you look lovely on TV.
A day closer to it than I was yesterday. Carry on.
Oh, did you go out and have that drink, did you? Good on you. But the cold hard facts of life is that we're all mortal. And I'm pretty sure that if someone who's prepared to put several million in this project dies, their kids are going to say, bugger that, I want that money. And we have those people lined up. They're sitting in the wings. We're not making this stuff up. They do not want to be identified, and they don't all live in Christchurch. But if 1 or 2 or 3 start to die, and it's a very high possibility, then when you come back and say, oh, you told me, yep, they died. And I can't even tell you when they're dead who they were. So can you see why that's a problem? I can.
Andrea, have you got something to add?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I also am working on bequests, so don't worry. But just to go back to you, Sam, I think it's the trigger that people are waiting for is someone to commit, and everyone's looking to our major funder, and that's what I'm hearing. We have had several events with people with high net worths. This museum has been founded on philanthropy. There's no doubt about it. Yes, it's had a lot of support, but in those early days, Peter and I were talking outside, in those early days, to whack up all those buildings, in those very early days of Christchurch, that came from money from England. That came from family money. So we will do that again. This is an opportunity for families of Christchurch and Canterbury to leave a legacy. And I'm hearing that, and I know that it's there. But no one's going to give us their money until they know there's a surety the project will continue, because unfortunately we've got some projects that have gone before us where that's happened, and I'm hearing that. So, I would love it if we could all get in the same room and all have a chat, because I think we'd all be on the same page. No one doesn't love this place. No one doesn't have a memory of this museum. I talk to these people day in and day out, and they love it. They want to support it, but they're not going to support it if we're not going to finish it.
So you have a level of comfort that you will find that 36 million from the philanthropic
We
sector.
are talking at the moment in multi-million-dollar donations. We're not at 36.6, but we haven't even touched the surface of when we go out to the public. Now, I know that people pay a levy, and I understand that times are hard, but we know the love for this place, and we know that we have a campaign that's going to drive the last part of that money. We are talking to people overseas. We're talking to Cantabrians who've done well, and they want to support. That's happening. We are talking. We've got some out there ideas. We're trying to look at this differently. We're looking at social enterprise. We're looking at different ways to raise the money. So I can only say that's what I'm hearing. Do I have written pieces of paper to say that I've got the money? No, I don't. But I know I've got some proposals out there for naming rights, which comes with a high price, and we hope that we're going to get that over the line.
Thank you.
Okay. Tyler, please, and then me, and that's it.
I see Yanni's got the C online.
Oh, cool. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, right. Yeah, I didn't see it. No, down on the bottom of the screen there, I didn't see it. Yeah, Yanni. Yeah. Go, Tyler.
I thought he was just waving at us here.
Kia ora koutou. Thanks so much for that. I just wanted to, just for public knowledge, first of all, could you just brush over what got you to here, particularly the remedial works that were...
What got us here?
Yeah.
Can you be...
So, for example, the remediation works, the underground works that you needed to do.
Why did we go there, and what have we... I'm still not sure I understand.
Just talk us through the journey. From day dot.
Okay.
The remediation works was the blowout, for example.
I can do that because I've been there right the way through. We went out, obviously, to try and fix the problem that we see. When you've got people running around inside museums with buckets holding water, you realise the museum's got a problem. When you see artefacts in there that have gone mouldy and rotten, you realise you've got to do something about this. So we went out and talked to the community, first and foremost. What would you like to see in your new museum if we can build one? And we got a lot of good answers about that. we went out and we were asked questions about, well, you know, why don't you just move your collections off site, which is the easiest and obvious question to ask. That shows a lack of understanding of how a museum actually works. You know, if I'm a curator here and I've got to get in my car and drive to the airport, say, to pick up an item and bring it back, you can't send a courier driver. These are artefacts. They've got to be stored and looked after properly. So there's no real way that you could store this collections anywhere else. So we decided, okay, well, we can't go up, we can't go out, we can only go down. So we put out a tender process to the people in Christchurch who can build this sort of stuff. And one of the ones that came back to us was March, and I've known March, Bus knows March, Phil knows March, and I just thought, okay. Then they introduced us to, and I didn't realise they'd been bought out by a French company, and then they flew one of their top people out here, and they showed us what they had done in France with a 1500s monastery, which is bigger than the Canterbury Museum. They lifted it up on stilts on the side of the building, fixed the ground underneath and put it down, exactly what we're doing here. And I thought, wow, you know, this is something that we should seriously start to consider. So the more we talked to people, we realised that this was a doable project. The base isolation has solved a lot of problems for us. The water table is what it is. Everybody, you know, can tell you there's water running under there. It is what it is, you know. And we built Raven's Car across the road. We looked at that and saw, you know, what went right there, what went wrong. The real thing to me happened the other day when I was there with you. And I walked underneath the Rob McDougall and I thought, there's something different about this. The difference was it felt dry. For the first time there, that building felt dry. The D wall's completed. That's the diaphragm wall for those who weren't able to make it, and that's going down a long way. And I thought, this is definitely doable. So we then went to the rest of the project and went through it and said, we can do this. And if we can do nothing else, we can at least save the money that we've got, because there's no point doing what we're doing. I'm also chair of the investor committee, and I know where the money is, and I know that the rate of return we're getting on those investments is nowhere near keeping up with the rate of devaluation of the money that we've got. So we have to spend what we've got on today's money to get today's value. There's no point, as one of my recent board members told me, just put it in the bank, redesign it, and come back when you know what you're doing. Really? What do you think that's going to buy in 5 years' time, which was the term that was used? Nothing. So we, I believe, have secured it. I saw in this morning's paper someone who's agreed now that perhaps it is maybe a good idea to go underneath, but said we've got a gold-plated building out there. They need to go and have a look. The staff out there are working in incredibly difficult situations. They're curatorial staff. They live to do stuff in the museum. They are not in gold-plated offices, I can assure you of that. We are not making a big deal about where they are, because obviously we've got a security problem out there. Yeah, we don't tell people exactly where that collection is unless we can avoid it. No one's really rumbled it, but we went through a process. We told nobody where it was going, because if you can imagine a truck going out of the museum with a mummy in the back of it and it got hit, what's going to happen? You're not going to be able to sell it, but you're still going to nick it. And that's why we are very conscious of making sure that we keep the collection, which is now dry, it's stored. The curatorial staff that are out there are repairing all the stuff that was damaged. That's one of the things they're doing. And they're also building what are they called? Pods. The pods which will go into the new visitor experience, because there's no point opening and saying, oh, shit, we better fit it out now. That's what they're doing. So when people say, oh, you've got all these people, they're not the same people that we had when we shut it, but we've got people now running Quake City, the pop-up museum. We've got people going around to all of the schools. We're getting huge feedback from what we're doing there. So that's the process. Is that sort of
That's perfect. Then last one, really quick, Mr. Mayor, is around, we're going to talk hypotheticals now. Mm-hmm. As you could acknowledge that there are some councillors around the table, and all of us do, worry about the public purse.
Yeah, me too.
And what we need is we need the people to back us
Yep.
to make sure that we're putting the money where it needs to go.
Yep. Yep.
If there was a situation where we went up for consultation, whether it be either this year or an annual plan next year, and there was strong public backing, do you believe that central government would buy in on that if there was strong public backing?
I don't think it would hurt. I think that it will hurt in as much as that we've lost the opportunity to grab the current pricing. But look, you know, I can't, and I'm like you, I'm the ratepayer in the city as well. Yeah. And I'm very conscious that you've got a $1.6 billion budget. I know that must be weighing on your minds, as the same way that 50 odd million is currently weighing on my mind. I don't have a spare 50 million, but I'm conscious that the city has got a lot of debt. And, you know, I don't want to get into arguments whether it's well spent, not well spent, because everyone's going to have a different point of view. There's no point going down that track. So all I can commit to you is that the next 2 years, I've promised Anthony I will stay here and I will see through what I've committed to, which is to get that building up. And if it's only closed, I can't do more than that. And you know, it's costing, we are volunteers. We've got a few more skills than that. I've run a business in this town for 50 years. I know about where money comes from and where it goes. So you can talk to everybody who's been involved with our board. You've got 2 city councillors who sit there with us. I understand now they're not allowed to actually vote on anything, which strikes me as odd. But they ask really good questions, the same way as their predecessors have done. There is no sycophants on that board that you can ask the specialist subject people about how hard it is to work with this board. We're a bunch of bloody, you know, we ask some really interesting questions.
Okay, thank you, Tom. No, we've got to move on. I've got a question from me. Now, very roughly speaking, the number I'm hearing is 51 or 50. That's 25 from us, in theory, and 25 from the government. That gets what you said, the first fit out done. The philanthropic stuff could be the customer experience after. If you, is that correct? Do I understand it right?
Yeah, that's the breakdown.
Now,
It couldn't open until the whole
it couldn't open until the whole thing. But at the moment, you've got a contract from Lees to build the thing, to the shut-up box. You also have a contract for the next stage already in your hand, number.
Yeah, we have the number in our hand, and that would take us to a code-compliant building.
Yeah, sorry, no, I'm talking about for the next...
For the 50-odd?
No, for the fit-out.
Yeah.
For the 50-odd, yes. You've got that value in your hand, and they're prepared to go ahead and do it if you give them the nod by January.
In other words, don't go away for a year while we figure out what we're going to do now and then come back, because that's only going to cost more.
Yes.
But you've already got that number from them.
We tendered the full stage 4 and 5
The
together.
whole thing was tendered.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
And then we value engineered it back to what we could afford.
Yeah, it's not as if you're going out to tender. You've got it already. Okay,
Correct.
that's fine. Yanni, please, and then that's the last one.
Yeah, cool. Thank you for the presentation and thank you for the work that you're doing. I just wanted to know, in terms of fundraising, are you going to do anything like buy a brick or anything that engages the individuals in the city to provide personal support? I know the Court Theatre's done a little bit of that.
Yep.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
When is that going to happen?
We feel that for 2 reasons. One is getting the money, but the 2 is giving the Cantabrians an opportunity to say, hey, we were part of that, and we absolutely understand that.
We have worked on an idea which is help get the collection back to Rolliston Ave, and it can be very tactile and participatory. So absolutely, we are looking at that.
Okay. Thank you, and thank you, Yanni. We're well over time, mate. We have to stop. We've got to stop. And Sam wants to put the shortest question he's ever had.
Sorry, it was one of my million I didn't ask for. Just so, correct me if I'm wrong, when we talked about this last time, when you had the first sort of escalation, there was a portion that was going to be fundraised then as well.
That was always, I think, the top end of it, the bit we talk about now with
So just in terms of that top end, has any been raised for that yet?
Through grants and trusts, yes, and we've had some philanthropic, but
how, are we talking sort of
a few 100,000?
Right. Okay. Yeah. Right. So
we get that all the time.
But so just though, if we hadn't had this sort of cost escalation on the fit out side, the stage 1 fit out, would we be still on track to raise the money that you're already going to raise?
If we'd done this early, we wouldn't have as much money to raise.
That's not what I'm asking. What I'm asking is if we were, if we hadn't had the cost escalation through this latest situation, would we have been on track to raise the money you were always going to raise?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, well, we were looking at I took this job on over a year ago, and it was 42.5 million that I was tasked to raise. It's now 86.6. So my focus was not really around construction. There was some construction money to raise, but not a lot. Now we're looking at a lot of construction money, and that's difficult to get over the line. People like to put their name on something or walk in and say, I've helped make that whale soar in the air. They like that. So
okay. Yep. So, thank you.
Yep.
We've gobbled up more time than I need to, but thank you. And Tom, thank you for coming and making it a lot clearer, I feel, to what we've heard in the past.
Okay. You happy with that approach?
It's different approach. It's good.
Thank
you.
Righto. Thank you very much for your time. have a nice day. I know it's a long day. Okay.
We've got people waiting.
Because we started about 7 minutes late and it's 7 minutes over.
Okay. I hope VO are there. This morning, so we're just that amount over. So thank you for coming in. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Phil. Good to be in front of you again, councillors, and hopefully we can have a good interaction session this morning. Look, this is obviously about VO's draft statement of intent, and I just want to stress a couple of things. It is draft. You will make comments on it. We've got probably the opportunity to do further work on it, but particularly given that for this period of statement of intent, this next 3 years, our business changes. It changes because of the stadium. And it changes so much that I think it's important that you work with us in trying to understand it. And you're going to have an opportunity for a deep dive on that. I think it's the 20th of May. But it does impact our statement of intent. So I just wanted to make those few comments before I hand over to Caroline and the team to present the draft statement of intent, the highlights from it, because it's a longer document than that, obviously, and just invite you, if you like, to engage in it and engage again on the 20th of May, particularly around One New Zealand Stadium at Te Kaha. But thanks very much for the time.
Thanks, Gil. All right, well, nice to be here again, and excitingly, this is the first of our statements of intent where we've got One New Zealand Stadium at Te Kaha in operation, so we're pretty excited about that, as I'm sure you all are. So look, just some introductory comments from me. Obviously our statement of intent reflects the letter of expectation that you as our shareholder provides to us, and our statement of intent is obviously aligned with the Council's strategic objectives and community outcomes. As I've said, this is the first SOI where we've got a full financial model for One New Zealand Stadium at Te Kaha, and it's got 2 years and 10 weeks of operation, so assuming the 20th of April 2026 is the day of practical completion. But you'll see from our draft statement of intent that this is genuinely a step change, and it's a step change for Venues Ōtautahi and a step change for the city. And the stadium itself is going to be Aotearoa's premium stadium. And what you'll see by the forecasts are that this is testament to not only the fact that it is in the most perfect location, it's beautifully designed, and it's testament to your backing of the community sentiment to get this thing up and going back in 2021. But the venue is only one thing, so we've got to make sure that we've got a business that's set up commercially and operationally for that building to be successful, and we'll talk through some of those highlights as we look forward into the next 3 years. In the interest of time, we are going to focus on the highlights operationally and financially, and we'll crack into it. So obviously our mission is to strategically manage and leverage the venues to deliver social, cultural, environmental and economic benefit to the region. That is testament and underpins everything that we do. You're well versed in terms of what venues we are lucky enough and privileged enough to have in our portfolio. And this is our strategic framework, and I won't spend too much time on this, but you'll see we've got 5 delivery pillars and 5 enabling pillars. Those delivery pillars focus on revenue growth and diversification, enhancing the client and guest experience, innovation, technology and data, championing ōtautahi in everything that we do, and attracting events to the venues to make sure that the utilisation is maximised. And all of those things that underpin our ability to deliver are people and protection, environmental and social impact, managing our assets, collaboration and partnership, and importantly, financial sustainability. And all of those things deliver those 3 critical outcomes around environmental, social, cultural impact. So to get into our operational performance, year 1 is slightly different than years 2 and 3. So year 1, you'll see consistent momentum across the VO portfolio of venues with respect to event numbers, guest numbers, carbon emission reduction, our health and safety performance, internal culture and engagement, championing ōtautahi, etc. But with respect to One New Zealand Stadium at Te Kaha, obviously we are continuing our operational readiness. We'll conclude those material commercial transactions that are remaining, and then we'll have 10 weeks of operation in this next financial year. But then there's years 2 and 3, and this is where we see a real step change. From an operational perspective, the step change comes in event volume, guest numbers, the volume of major events, a greater than 20% reduction in carbon emissions, the direct and indirect economic contribution to the region, always championing ōtautahi. And then we have our financial step change. There's a circa 121% increase in operating revenues, and we'll get into those details in a minute. We are forecasting no longer needing council operational support, so that's a reduction of 3.25 million per annum. And we are in a position where we'll self-fund major event attraction also. And then as a result, obviously our subvention receipts will also reduce to nil, which is another 2 million. We'll obviously continue our positive momentum across all of those other aspects across the portfolio, but they're the real step changes when it comes to the impact of One New Zealand Stadium at Te Kaha as part of the portfolio of venues. So you'll see those highlights there. So our guest numbers are forecast to increase 84%, so around 500,000 to over 920,000. Events up 42%, so going from around that 380 to 550, and then a 75% increase in major events. And that's obviously, the draw card of One New Zealand Stadium at Te Kaha, go from 16 to around 28. We then are enabled to do more for our community, so 50% increase there in the value of community discounts, and then consistent increases across our net promoter scores for client and guest experience. And again, these are consistent, so we'll continue to source 80% of our food locally. We'll engage 70% of our contractors and suppliers from the local region. We're forecasting an over 20% reduction in environmental and carbon emissions for the period, and then obviously 100% local staff. Now into the financial performance, so looking forward through 26 to 28. Obviously our strategic focus is on business and revenue growth and financial sustainability, and we've been working hard since 2019 to create a business and a framework that seeks to reduce council support as much as we possibly can, operational support, and focus on growth, but also cost efficiency and cost control. Concurrently, we've been developing the commercial and operational model for the stadium. Obviously, we want to maximise this opportunity for council and for the city. And to this point, the 2019 investment case and the 2022 VO analysis of that investment case have been the reference point, and we'll talk a little bit about those comparators. Our assumptions looking forward include a phased approach to resourcing. Obviously, we're gearing up, but not too soon, and looking toward that 20th of April as that practical completion date. We've already talked a little bit about those underpinning assumptions for the venue portfolio. Consistent growth. We're not seeing any forecasting any cannibalisation of content from other venues in the portfolio. and we've assumed Apollo Project Stadium will no longer be operational once One New Zealand Stadium Te Kaha is. Obviously, we're committed to being a living wage employer, so all of those aspects are included, and our general overheads are consolidated, so include One New Zealand Stadium. And we've talked about those assumptions around council support. And here's just a graph showcasing that. So you'll see the 3.25 million going to nil, the 2 million in subvention also going to nil, which is a significant saving across the period. We'll just get into some comparators. So, and there's a bit of an apples with apples with the 2019 investment case. It was a very, very different model. And we'll talk about the materiality in a minute. But you'll see that the 2019 investment case averaged an annual revenue of between 7.4 million and 10.5 million. We're now looking at 31.5, 32 million for those 4 years of operation. The VO analysis back in 2022 was around the 18.9, 19 million. So you'll see that as a material uplift, and there are reasons for that we'll talk to. And similarly, with respect to operating profit, the 2019 investment case forecast a deficit in the first, $250,000 surplus in the first year, and then a deficit in years 2 and 3. That's now 5.7, 5.8 in operating surplus. So the materiality of that step change is probably the big question. Oh. Yeah, now we have to give you confidence in those numbers. So, oh, good. So look, there's two aspects to the materiality of the step change, and one with respect to the 2019 investment case, which was a completely different operating model. It was an outsourced catering model. It was a standalone operator, so it didn't have those governance and management savings that we get from a portfolio approach. But then it obviously also talks to the strength of the commercial agreements that we've negotiated in the last couple of years. Obviously, naming rights, porridge, ticketing, content, all of those things are beyond what was forecast in the 2019 investment case, as well as executing those long-term partnerships that will guarantee content. So the likes of the Warriors, the Phoenix, Crusaders, obviously. And then also premium hospitality. The construct was completely different. That is the most material shift, is the volume of premium hospitality and the commercial models therein. So then there's the material step change from our last SOI and the analysis. So obviously with the stadium being at developed design, we don't have confidence with respect to capital and operational asset management and maintenance costs. Now we do. So we've had those independently completed for us, utilising WTP partnership that have already been working on the stadium, but do the town hall and the arena as well. And they've done that for the full cost model for the full life of the asset. Obviously, the last SOI was prior to negotiating those material commercial agreements and prior to the premium hospitality being confirmed in the model. It was also prior to confirmation of where the asset would sit, and was prior to the ticket levy also being included in our assumptions. So to give you some confidence, obviously, in those numbers, that talks to the materiality, but confidence. So we have significant contingency built into the model around operating costs, and that is significant. We've been conservative in our event forecasts, and to give you an example, we've got 86% of the number of business events in our forecast that were in the investment case. So again, conservatism has to be there, because yes, we have aspirations, and yes, we know how successful this venue is going to be, but we don't want to be in a position where we're making promises and writing checks that we can't cash. We've taken a long-term sustainable view. So yes, there's going to be a honeymoon period. We all know that, but we have to account for the flattening of that, and we've done that in our long-term view. And we've been conservative with respect to premium hospitality. We've been here so many times talking to you about the demand. So our forecasts do not reflect that demand. They reflect a very conservative perspective on that demand. And we've also not included some of the inventory around sponsorship as well as premium hospitality, just to be on the safe side. So a couple of notes, and then we can get into your questions, which I'm sure you'll have many. One is, look, where we've tried to be self-sufficient is around operational expenditure, and that includes meeting those costs of attracting major events. And the reason we've done that versus any kind of capital saving is obviously that has the greatest impact on the ratepayer. So that's been our focus. There will still be capital support required across the venue portfolio, obviously with the town hall and the arena, but not until around circa year 7 or 8 of operation of One New Zealand Stadium. So no operational capital support for the first 7 years. The pre-opening expenses that we've been meeting through our cash reserves for the last 3 years or so are still there as reimbursed in the first next 2 years. And then obviously we've also already talked about the reduction of those subventions. Turf management, turf is being looked after obviously by the council team, so those costs are excluded from the model, always have been, and obviously those asset ownership costs are also excluded, particular reference to rates and insurance. So look, it's a really good news story where, look, we knew that the venue, based on what its design is, the demand for it, the demand for premium hospitality, I think it's exacerbated in a good way by everyone's been waiting for this for a long time, and I think it's going to deliver more than we ever expected, and we can see that in our forecasts. But it genuinely is testament, A, to picking a wonderful location, a brilliant design, a right-sized venue, and for you backing it, because it's going to be incredible. So thank you for that, and we'll take your questions.
Andre, please.
Thank you. Can you please just refresh my memory on what you consider major?
Yeah. So do you talk to the definition?
Yeah, so definition is any international cricket at Hagley Oval, Wolfbrook Arena, over 5,000 people attending a event, and then all international games at One New Zealand Stadium, and other content over 10,000 people. So that's for venues All-Star definition of a major event, which is 16 to 28 in the projections.
Beautiful, very exciting. Thank you.
Sam?
Hey, thank you. That is good news. So pleased to see that. A couple of things. So the financial performance targets are 26, 28 on that slide 16, I think it is. Just where so you got operating the draft SOIs 5.7 mil in 26, 27. Yeah, that one there.
That one?
Yep. And then 27, 28 is 5.8. This will be the silliest question of the day, hopefully. What happens to that operating profit?
Yeah, Jamie, I'll hand over to you.
Is that to fund what do we do with it? Does it come back here? Does it go to offset other costs?
So this is operating profit rather than EBITDA. So EBITDA is essentially break even. That's covering all the remaining costs of operating the portfolio of venues. So facilities maintenance and other things below that operating profit line. Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to understand is what's the sort of net return to council, not necessarily in cash, but in cash we don't have to put out the door.
Yeah, so EBITDA is we're break even in that 20. Oh, there you go.
This is probably the easiest way to see. So that the reduction from 4.7 million of funding in 26-27 to 1 million of operational funding, and again 4.7 to 0 in 27-28 from an operational funding point of view. This doesn't account for any reduction in bid incentive requirements as well.
Right. Okay. So just so I've got it clear in my mind, we're effectively saying that it just seems we're taking on a big asset in the middle of the city where we'd be expecting, we always thought we'd be contributing more to it. Mm-hmm. But now what you're saying is actually the commercialisation of it has meant that we're going to end up giving you less money than we budgeted for.
Yep.
That's pretty
quite
good
a
news.
significant amount at least.
Yeah, completely. Yeah. So then just in terms of the business case at the beginning, Did we always have it so that rates of insurance were excluded?
No, so they were part of the model.
Right.
Yeah, but it was, but the model itself was completely different when it came to the construct of the operator.
Right.
So, for example, there wasn't, it was an outsourced catering. So obviously we're 59% of our revenue is food and beverage.
Yep.
So the model, it's almost, you can't compare the two models. And that's why that analysis from 2022 is the better comparator.
I guess what would be maybe useful if takeaway if this team can pull together is just something, because I think there's some stuff floating around online and in the media and stuff like that today. It'd just be good to be really clear on what we thought the council was going to have to contribute, and then it's sort of that apples with apples. So if that was what it was, then actually, yeah, you've commercialised a heap of this, but that means that we're not incurring costs as well. So is that something we could do ideally today or tomorrow?
We'll do a bit more of a deep dive on the investment case analysis.
Yeah.
We'll get some key stats.
Then we
for
can
you.
be really clear with people. Yeah. Great. Thanks.
Okay, Cal?
Yeah, thank you, Caroline. I mean, those words just sort of slip past everybody. I think, venues o te tahi, eliminating the need for council operating support. No, I know. I noticed that you got it. What is so unique about this situation in terms of the running of a stadium in New Zealand? Can you touch on that? Because so many people thought that the stadium was going to end up costing us so much.
Yeah, look,
so what's unique about this?
The capital renewal, the asset renewal remains. So there is still contribution from a capital perspective. It's just that it's not for some time. The difference with this stadium is, one, we've managed to create some long-term partnerships with some quite different commercial constructs that are delivering long-term guaranteed content. And what that does is it underpins the demand and the ability to sell premium hospitality, and a lot of it. And what we've also managed to do is create premium hospitality options in places that weren't designed for them. So there are certain pockets of the venue that you can actually create more club-like types of environments. And that was a lot of learnings that you get from the likes of the venues in America, for example, because they create a lot of opportunities to sell high-end premium hospitality. Now, that doesn't mean that the venue is devoid of general admission, because there's plenty of it, but it just means commercially it's delivering greater outcomes.
Yeah, and definitely the portfolio approach goes a long way too. One venue alone is really important, but you put 5 really powerful, diverse venues that don't compete with each other, you get a really good result and cost savings and efficiencies.
Yeah.
Yanni, please.
Cool, thank you. Thank you for the update. I had several questions. The first is, in terms of getting ready for the opening, have you done any updated traffic modelling on how people get to the stadium? I was quite surprised on our walkabout, and possibly it was just a thing that I didn't pick up on, but the main entrance is on the other side of the stadium where we're not doing the roadworks. So I'm quite concerned about just to understand the latest traffic modelling for the opening of the stadium, and whether we need to do any more roadworks around the main entrance so that people have a good experience.
Look, that's probably something we can even add to our conversation for May. Obviously, that's a partnership between council and us, and we'll work through all of that. Look, as far as the work that we've done to date with council is that traffic will and pedestrian traffic will work well. It won't be without its challenge. It is a venue in the middle of the city, but let's take that and perhaps deep dive that when we do that workshop in May.
Yeah, there's definite engagement though.
As well, because they don't know where people are going to park. Well, I actually think they'll park on the eastern side, and again, that's the area that we've done no transport planning on.
Yeah, we've had quite a bit of engagement with council. So yeah, to Caroline's point, we can definitely go into it in May and give you a bit more confidence and shape what it could and will look like if that's all good.
In terms of the local
can you make this last one, please, Yanni? Because I've got a few banged up behind you, please.
Yeah, sure. So just in terms of the local procurement, I was, I guess, surprised that we weren't using a local beverage supplier. So is there any I just trying to understand as we move to the stadium, how we're measuring the use of local companies and local suppliers.
Yeah.
Because I do agree with in your statement around the champion Otatahi, and it would be great to know, just I think to have a bit more detail around how we're supporting local businesses as opposed to New Zealand businesses.
Yeah. So look, as you will all know, sourcing local is at the heart of everything that we do. But with the stadium, there are a few more challenges just when it came to beverage. So, and again, we have to balance sourcing local and commercial viability, and it always is one of those tricky propositions. We also, with the stadium, need to maintain flexibility. So the likes of One New Zealand Warriors will have their porridge partner line. And then the All Blacks with Steinlager, etc. So we need to have that flexibility as well. And so that's why we've chosen a partner that allows that flexibility, sources their barley from Darfield, sources their hops from a bit further down the South Island, is physically based here in Christchurch. So we tried to balance as much as we possibly could with commercial viability, flexibility, and local. That partner as well also is willing to have flexibility with respect to having some other lines. So for the likes of Castles in the stadium, for example, it also means that we can be predominantly local with beverage for
Thanks,
the town.
Caroline. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you, Yanni. So I've got Tyler.
It's unreal. Thank you for that. I just wanted to quickly delve into two quick things. The first one was the long-term partnerships and their models. And it's referenced here, you've got the One New Zealand Warriors, Crusaders and Wellington Phoenix. Can you tell me how that's sort of structured? I'm sort of not sure how venues gain income from these partnerships and what that's like transactionally.
Yeah, obviously we can't go too much into
No,
the commercial details, but do you want to high level?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it just gives us certainty from guaranteed content. So that's real of a winner, because if we can guarantee content at the stadium, we know what that spits out, like food and beverage at 59%. So without that content, it looks quite different. So having the models are very different in terms of, Canterbury Rugby versus Crusaders, Warriors, Phoenix. But what it means is we have surety that we can budget to, noting that those teams will play at the venue as well. So that's really where the win is, to be honest. And the quality of the venue, it stacks up for them to play here. And we can never forget that. They're doing well financially in Christchurch, and long may it continue.
That's great to know. Which leads me into the last one, is around the portfolio approach. Would you be able to talk to us a bit more about that? I'm sort of wanting to understand a bit more about how you guys work it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess from a Venues Otatahi point of view, we've got strong relationships across business events, promoters, sporting teams as well. So when you plug another venue in, we've already got the relationship. We've got trust with whether it's a promoter, Live Nation, TG, Frontier, or all the sporting teams, all the business events, professional conference organisers, the strong EAPA community. They know who we are, we know them, and that's important. So that just helps you speed up to fill a new venue, opposed to going from scratch. But also, one of the many examples is like a sales team. We don't need to double or triple our sales team, because again, we're talking to the same person. So staff inefficiencies are huge in that as well across all parts of our business.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mark, please, and then Sarah, did you want to say? Yeah. Yep.
Thank you. Great presentation, great story. I did pick up on one thing in there, the Air Force Museum. You'd be, I guess, early stage talking to them about their potential expansion of a new venue for you in the new aircraft hall.
Yeah.
That would be something which could bring a slightly different slant, I'd imagine, to the portfolio.
Yeah, I mean, the Air Force Museum adds a wonderful, unique venue as part of the portfolio. And I think what, Danny's been talking about is that this is the wonderful thing about this portfolio and the assets that the city has, which is there's something for everyone, and there's a place for all of those different types of events. So Christchurch is so well positioned, better positioned than anybody. Yeah.
Thank you. And Sarah, please.
Thanks so much. Awesome work, thank you. It's just a question for Mary. So when the business case analysis stuff comes back that Sam's requested, can we get just a rundown on the costs that still stay with council, please?
So that's the capital debt costs.
Oh, just all of those costs. So the capital debt costs, the insurance rates, turf, that kind of stuff. That'd be great. Thanks.
Okay. No. We're well over time, so thank you very much for coming back and keeping us up to speed. Good news indeed. Thank you, Gil. Good to see you, mate.
Everyone.
Okay, so we've got public excluded at 11 o'clock, please. So we're gobbling into a bit of let's have a quick cup of tea and we're back into it.